What are drugs?
Cure for medical purposes.
If it's an unhealthy habit, it's going to be handling and understanding emotion.
And what is peer pressure? What violence actually means.
Violence is meant to bully someone.
Navchetna, a new consciousness on life skills and drug education for school children. Objectives. By the end of this session, students will be able to, first, to have a general understanding about cannabis, the three main types, and short and long-term effect. Second, to have a general understanding about opiates and short and long-term effects. Third, to have a general understanding about sedatives and short and long-term effects. Fourth, to have a general understanding about cough mixture and short and long-term effects. Fifth, to identify ways to reduce the potential harms from drugs and to reflect on their learning about drugs.
Good afternoon. Please be seated. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So this is the basics of drug education information, and this is part 2. Might be remembering something from part 1, but today we'll be discussing part 2. So let me begin by discussing about cannabis, which is a type of drug. In northern part of the country, in India, the names by which the particular drug is called, I will share those names, and then if you have any other names, we may ask you. So the names by which cannabis is commonly called in northern India is ganja, is bhang, datura, charas, sutta, sukha, goli, joint, sutta, sulfa, mal, bola batti, gola, bola, hash, marijuana, jai bola, jahang, goli, ragara, puria. So these are the names of cannabis by which it's commonly being called, and these are the names particularly in the northern part of the country. So any name that you are aware of, any name other than the names that I just discussed, that I just spoke, any name that you know for cannabis. So there are 3 main types of cannabis. That is marijuana. These are the dried leaves or flowers of the plant. The source is a plant. So the dried leaves are the flowers of a particular plant, which is called marijuana. Then hashish. Hashish is dried cannabis raisins that comes in small blocks. And hash oil is thick oily liquid, which again comes from this plant. So these are the 3 types of cannabis that we are talking about. Leaves, which is marijuana, the raisins, which is hashish, and the oil, which is hash oil. Cannabis is dried leaves from a plant called Cannabis stevia. In India, it is naturally grown. It's the most common illegal drug used in the world. Bhang is the leaves of the plant, not the flowering tips of the plant. And it is not illegal in India. So, what do you think? What are the common ways of taking cannabis in India? It can be smoked or it can be eaten, and it can be swallowed. As you eat, you would swallow it, or you may mix it with some fluid, some drink. Now, cannabis, like any other drug, has short-term effects. Some of the short-term effects that we may want to know are: you relax and you talk a lot under the influence of cannabis. increased hunger, red eyes, dry throat and mouth, trouble concentrating. These are the short term, immediate effects of having cannabis. Again, some more short term and immediate effects are sometimes worried, scared, see or hear things that are not there, which is hallucinating that we spoke of, reduced concentration, lot of confusion. There are more long term effects which include smoke cannabis increases risk of lung and chest problems. Cannabis when smoked might cause cancer. Of course, more research is needed, but it might cause cancer. Short term memory loss and learning difficulties, not being able to learn, concentrate. Decreased motivation and decreased concentration on anything that one would want to do. One becomes suspicious of others. Using a lot, often less likely to complete school. If someone would start using it, they are less likely to complete the school. There is also one mental health condition. There is also a mental health condition called schizophrenia. This can be triggered by cannabis, long use. If you have a family member or have a personal history of mental health problems, some cannabis users do suffer mental health issues, but the majority do not. So, long-term cannabis use, more use of cannabis in the long run can trigger this mental health condition called schizophrenia. There are more long-term effects. Possible lack of interest in studying or seeing the friends that one would have been used to. Needing to again use more just to feel normal, and in the long run would get dependent on cannabis. Heavy use can lead to seeing or hearing things that do not exist, which is hallucinating or distorted, as well as disturbed thinking or speech. The person may have even difficulties in talking. Regular and heavy cannabis use during adolescence is associated with more severe negative outcomes than use during adulthood. Someone using it at a younger age has consequences which are more harmful. Younger a person is when using cannabis, the more likely they will continue to do so as they get older. Now there are some questions that I am going to ask you based on what we just discussed. What is one thing that you now know about cannabis?
Cannabis is naturally grown in India.
Cannabis is naturally grown in India, yes.
It negative consequences which can impact in long run.
Okay.
It is illegal in India.
It is illegal in India, yes. So there are some myths about cannabis, is that it is completely harmless. What do you think? True, false? It's false. It is not possible to become dependent on cannabis. True, false? Again, it's false. Yes, long-term use of cannabis can make us dependent. Some people don't become dependent. That is true about cannabis. Sometimes people may think there are no long-term consequences of cannabis. What do you think? True or false? No long-term consequences. False. There are long-term consequences of cannabis use. Cannabis use will automatically lead to mental health problems such as schizophrenia. No, that is false. This is also a myth that anybody who is into long-term cannabis use will have this mental health condition called schizophrenia. No, that's not true. That is false. As we said and as we discussed, it's only a small minority who may develop this condition, but majority does not. In majority of the cases, this mental health condition does not get triggered by long-term use of cannabis. All right. So the question number 2, most young people get information about cannabis and other drugs from their friends. Why do you think young people ask their friends for drug information, for any information related to drugs?
Because they're comfortable with friends.
Because they are comfortable with the friends. Okay.
It is very sensitive topic, so they can't share with their parents and as well as anybody who is elder to them. Either it could be their teachers or any mentor.
Okay, so they are not comfortable. They are comfortable with the friends, but they are not comfortable with the adults because it's a sensitive topic, and they may not be comfortable even with their parents or teachers. All right, all right. What is the other reason? Why could young people be asking this information from friends only? Any other reasons? Any other purpose with which? Yes, please.
They know they will not judge them.
They know
Judge them.
they will not judgment. They know their friends will not judge them. They perhaps have apprehension that their elders might judge them, particularly their parents might judge them. So their friends will not judge them. What else is the reason? To get the information only from the friends?
Fear that if they ask her parents and teachers, they scold them about that.
Okay, so
Why
they will
you
get scolded.
ask this question?
Okay, so they will get scolded in the first place. Why are you asking these questions? What is your interest? Why do you want to know? Okay, so there is the fear. That's why they don't. All right, that's why they would ask from their friends. Any other reason why young people ask for the information on drugs from their friends only? Any other reason? All right, I think you have covered most of the factors. There's a fear of law, for example. It could be it's because it's illegal, so there is those legal consequences in our mind also. So this is something which we would not want everybody to know about it. So that's why we would discuss with our friends. We might be having apprehension that with our parents, this could be the reason that they would, once they would get to know, they might get into the details of it, and we might land up in trouble. Family, of course, we are not comfortable because, of course, one of the reason is they will judge us, and at the same time, they will be upset and they might feel uncomfortable, and then we don't know how they will respond to us. There is also a relation of stigma in the community, in our among our, in our family, in our community. Stigma might be there, or some of the other factors why young people may always ask for the information from the friends, but we need to understand it's not the accurate information that you would get from the friends. That is a demerit of getting information from your friends, because they don't know anything more than how much you know. So there is this possibility that whatever information you would get in the process from your friends, it will be inaccurate and inadequate. So it won't be complete information if you get it from the friends. That is something we have to have in our mind. Next question. What do you think that friends are always a reliable source of information, and why?
No, I would not agree they are a reliable source because they have many wrong assumptions as well as stereotypes a lot.
Okay, okay. Anybody else would like to try and share your thoughts?
No, because they don't have the adequate information.
Okay, okay. So again, what I just said, we need to be mindful and understand the essence of the fact that friends may not always have the correct answers. That's very important. And that there is much misinformation and misunderstanding about drugs in the community, which is available with our friends and which may get passed on to us. So it may actually not only confuse us further, but it may actually misguide us as well if we just depend on our friends as the only source of information. So in principle, two of our friends here are right in saying that it's not the reliable source of information. Friends are not the reliable source of information. Next one. Why do you think most young people do not use cannabis?
Because they are aware.
Because they are aware of what?
Cannabis.
Okay, they are aware that it's harmful. Is that what you mean?
that's harmful for young people.
Okay. Yes, you would like to add?
So because he know that cannabis is illegal drugs and he don't want to do any illegal work and he know the effects of cannabis.
Okay, okay. So they know it's an illegal drug, it has harmful consequences, and they don't want to end up in any kind of trouble. All right? They don't want to end up in any kind of legal issues or legal problems. That's why they would want to stay away from such situation, and which is why they want to avoid having cannabis. Why do you think most young people do not use cannabis?
Firstly, we know that in India the cannabis is illegal, and
Yes.
the second one is it may lead to a disease called schizophrenia.
Okay. So it has legal consequences, that is very important. More importantly, most of the friends do not use cannabis. So there is no way anybody would get encouraged to use cannabis. So most young people do not use cannabis. So you have friends who do not use cannabis. So you also stay away from them. So if you travel out of country, again, if you are in a position of cannabis, you can land up in trouble. So it can get into some police record, which is a criminal record. So it will leave you in a bad record for good. So you don't want to be in that record, which is why you would want to stay in such situation, away from such condition where you may be caught in possession of cannabis. It has a potential risk of mental and physical health, negative consequences. It affects your family relationships. It affects your friendship. It costs, because it's illegal, it has financial implications. So you will lose your financial resources in the process, and there is this fear. There is this fear which is in addition to all of this, because it's illegal. You are always fearful that you may end up if caught, you may end up in prison. So these are some of the reasons. Last question, why do you think people still use cannabis even when they know it can be harmful?
Because some people like to enjoy it and they will try to copy Lordship.
All right, any other reason?
Sir, because they have made their habit to take drugs regularly.
Okay, so they have become dependent on drugs. They cannot live without it. That's why they are using it. All right. All right. Any other person would like to share? Yes.
They have trapped in addiction. Their surrounding are not being essential that they could easily take off that or rid of that particular addiction.
Okay, so they are dependent.
Yes.
So because they are dependent, they are not able to stay away from it. They are not able to stay without it. Okay. Anything else would like to share? Yes.
In rural areas, people might be know about this, but they have not proper information that they can harm them or something else.
Okay, so in rural areas, you mean that there are a lot of myths. They don't have proper information, which is why they may be still continuing with the cannabis use, being ignorant of what the consequences are. Anything else?
When people take more tension, they think that when we take alcohol, they feel good and something.
Okay, so same thing like alcohol, they may want to try with cannabis because they want to stay away from stress, stay away from the tension. Okay, okay, all right. So this is one more myth community has, people have sometimes. Yes?
Sir, because they become cannabis addicted.
Because they are dependent on cannabis, they cannot live without it. So they are dependent on it, that's why they use it. So those who use cannabis often don't consider the possible long-term effects such as lung and chest problems when smoked. Some of the short-term effects such as feeling relaxed, happy or being part of group may be more important for some people. That's why they use cannabis. Or they may be also, as you rightly pointed out, some of you did, or maybe they are dependent on cannabis. and they may be finding it difficult to stop using cannabis.